Yeah, he's requesting a continuance. All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good evening. This is the May 10th, 2017 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Moving on to tonight's agenda, the first item is an enforcement order that has been continued from prior meetings, Antonio Viola, location 10 Tupee Lane, and it's a tree removal without a permit within 100-foot buffer zone of vegetated wetlands. So this was continued today for more information from Mr. Viola and his representatives, and they have contacted, I believe, Christine, and they've asked for a continuance.
Correct.
So, and they've been, from what I understand, they've been moving along, so.
Yes.
Okay, so that's, so any
Move to
discussion?
continue.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that will be to the May 24th? Second item on tonight's agenda is request for determination of applicability, Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility. Project location is 451 First Street Boulevard, and the proposed improvements include the replacement, and this is in the RDA, to include the replacement of an underground storage tanks, grout repairs to existing influent screw pumps, new bar screen isolation gate, and new sodium hypochlorite and sodium bisulfite storage tanks to replace existing tanks. And Mr. Young, if you could approach and identify yourself for the record.
Young, I'm the director for the wastewater utility in the city of Lowell, and also interim director for the water utility in the city of Lowell.
We need to amend that.
Not yet, let's not be too premature.
All right.
Acting.
Okay, I'm here to, I'll give you a project description. But the major components of the upgrade that we're doing at the treatment plant involve the removal of an underground diesel storage tank and to replace it with an above-ground diesel storage tank. We want to replace 2 existing sodium hypochlorite tanks, which is really bleach, which is used in the disinfection process of the treatment plant so that the effluent of the treatment plant doesn't contain any bacteria before it's released to the river. And we also want to replace 2 sodium bisulfite tanks, which is used to remove chlorine before our effluent is discharged to the river. The sodium hypochlorite tanks will be replaced in the existing concrete area where they're presently located. The bisulfite tanks will actually be relocated from where their present location, which is outside around the back of the treatment plant, to be stored in the tunnel system of the tank. So they will no longer be outside storage of sodium bisulfite. We're also looking at doing some improvements to the screw pumps, some repairs, and we'll be looking at putting some gates in the inside of the influent building, which is the first building that does treatment at the treatment plant, so that we can better do some maintenance on some of the equipment when we have to shut the plant down. That's about the extent of the improvements.
That's basically it?
Yeah.
So is it safe to put sodium hypochlorite and sodium bisulfite inside in an enclosed location, or is that, I'm
Yes.
assuming the building is going to be properly ventilated, or?
Yes, it is safe. It will be ventilated. That's what Hazen is designing for us, to make sure that everything is done according to code and any safety regulations that have to be adhered to where we want to do that. It's important that we get the sodium bisulfite inside because it's a chemical that actually freezes at around 50 degrees. And since it's essential that we remove the chlorine by permit given to us by EPA and DEP, we've had problems in the past with it freezing when the heating system may have due to a power interruption, and it can really cause problems. So to avoid any type of interruption due to the chemical freezing, it's better that we store it in the tunnel system in the treatment plant.
Okay. Now, aren't there, trying to think of the word, the gases that these things produce, aren't they highly corrosive? I mean, in the sense of long-term exposure to, metal parts of buildings and whatnot, aren't they somewhat corrosive to that? And will there be, regular inspections?
There will be regular inspections, somewhat corrosive, but not to where it raised any major concern with us, since we will have ventilation in these areas. And also, we're concerned about worker safety. We don't want to have any issues with potential harm to workers, so it's one of the things that, if we're going to store it in the tunnels, we have to be assured that there's enough ventilation so that there is no buildup of any type of gas.
Yeah.
And hypochlorite is not like chlorine gas. We used to use chlorine gas for disinfection. That I'd be greatly concerned about. But in essence, you're using the bleach that you buy off the store for your clothes.
Yeah, I suppose I misspoke. I didn't mean immediately corrosive, in the sense of, like a hydro, phosgene or something like that type gas. I meant more long-term exposure.
More chronic than acute.
Yeah, and buildup, and it
Potentially, yes.
accelerates oxidation and.
If it's not properly ventilated, yes.
Okay.
Potentially.
All right. No further questions, Commissioner Varnum?
I'm just curious, do I recall correctly that similar work was proposed some few years ago? Or is this a continuation of, or is this the same work that was proposed?
This is continuation of upgrades at the treatment
Right.
plant. We did a project for upgrades, I think about 5-6 years ago. We're in a second phase, and after this, in 5 years, we'll be in the third phase.
Oh, good.
So we're always looking to improve.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Beardron?
Just one question. Are the tanks plastic?
Plastic material, yes, like a polymer material.
Okay.
They're not metal.
The new ones you're putting in there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just curious. All done.
Commissioner McDonough? Right. Anything else additional from the city, Christine, other than the comments that we received?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here who'd like to offer any comments or concerns on this RDA or any other information? All right. Do I have a motion for a -3 determination?
I'll make a motion for a -3 determination.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, tonight's third item is a request for certificate of compliance, Jacqueline Thistle, 108 Fotine Drive, concerning DEP file number 2060445. Project location is 108 Fotine Drive. Now, I note that that's the mailing address of the current lot. This was part of a, I'm assuming, is Ms. Thistle here? No, okay. So I'm assuming that, or we do know that this was part of a much larger development back in 445 would have been, boy, I don't know, the 90s, 2000s,
Yeah, early 2000s.
2003, 4, 5.
2000. Some of these site plans are from 1998.
Okay, all right. Christine, do you have a specific lot number for this one?
Yes, it's lot 16,
Lot 16? Okay, 16?
16.
Okay, all right. Has anyone had a chance to go up there and look at it?
I went out, Christine, is it the house that was recently sold? Is that the one where, yeah. I didn't go onto the property, but I could see and remember the resource area. It looks almost completely untouched from what it was when the house was built. It looks like the original resource area without cutting of trees or anything else, as far as I could see from the street, and I could see pretty well. So I would have no problems issuing a certificate for that lot.
Yeah, and the pictures kind of show that too. The pictures actually are very good, by the way. They show the, yeah, I mean, they do, they capture the resource. You know, that you can kind of definitely see where the resource just comes right up into the lot, and where, you know, there's somewhat of a demarcation, so that the pictures were very helpful. All right, so any other questions regarding this? Do I have a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance for 108 Fotine Lot 16 of 206445?
I'll make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with everything that the chairman just said.
Second.
Do I have a second? By Commissioner McDonough, motion by Commissioner Beardron. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Moving on to other business, Tiger Bridge presentation. And Claire, if I could ask you to introduce yourself to the commission, because I'm assuming we're going to be seeing more of you.
From here? Let's see. Oh, now it's gone forever. It'll work.
No, we have it.
That should work. Hi, good evening. I'm Claire Ricker. I'm the Chief Design Planner here for the City of Lowell. I work for the Department of Planning and Development. For about a year now, I've been working on this bridge project funded by, in part by a federal Tiger grant. So just really quickly, I'm going to do an overview of the project. We'll talk about the bridges and what each one, kind of what work is entailed with each of them, the schedule, and then any questions that you have. So working with UMass Lowell, Enel, DOT, Federal Highway, and the Federal Tiger Office, we are looking to either replace or rehabilitate 6 downtown canal bridges. We have had 1 year to complete the design. It has been quite a process. The city was successful in this application. Rehabbing these bridges is critical for downtown mobility, for circulation. I mean, as you know, we have bridges that can't be crossed by city buses, by fire trucks, even in some instances. And so, as you can see at the bottom, this is a very competitive program, a very competitive process, and we were awarded roughly $13.5 million for this project. Part of this project will be the city's acquisition of 8 downtown canal bridges. Enel has already completed the work at Kearney Square, and they're finishing up at Broadway over the Pawtucket Canal. The work will be done on 6 remaining bridges. You can kind of see the map here of what we're looking at over a period of about 5 years. We will be replacing or repairing bridges that are extremely deficient, as well as providing more multimodal access across the bridges, and then to be planned, to be done in concert later with other street improvement projects, other bike lanes and things like that. Initially, the construction staging, I included this slide just so you could see. We will be closing at least 2 of the bridges to traffic, Pawtucket over Northern only for the UMass Lowell kids crossing. Suffolk over Northern will be complete closure, and then the other 4 bridges will be, as they're replaced or rehabilitated, will have some traffic moving back and forth across. We're not We're really not in a position right now to talk about which bridges may go first or second or anything at this point. I think it's a conversation we will be having with the contractor and obviously other stakeholders who are involved. We want to limit disruption as much as we possibly can, especially to the national park with their boat tours. And we have spoken quite a bit with Enel about when they do their generation during the flood season to try not to disrupt that either. So to begin with, at Merrimack over Merrimack, which is right outside, we will be basically just restoring the historic handrail, which used to have such a wonderful decoration on it, these rosettes. We will be replacing, and we will be putting in a BR2 safety rail. That's the extent of the construction there. This is the property plan. We are seeking easements for construction, staging and construction access over there from, I believe it is DCR, Locks and Canals, and St. Anne's Church. That bridge, we believe, will be under construction for about 1 year, about 10 months. Merrimack over Western, we'll be doing new sidewalks and new rail with new fascia and sidewalk beams. It's in pretty rough shape if you've been over it. That's the one with the holes in the sidewalk. We'll be working on that one for about a year as well. This bridge, we will be doing at least some dewatering of the canal. The duration of the work in the canal is anticipated to last about 3 months. So you can see on the construction plan, we'll be doing the sidewalks, we'll be doing the railings, and then the fascia and some deck improvement. And these are the easements that we are in the process of acquiring for that bridge. Central Street, pretty similar, new deck, sidewalks, a safety rail, superstructure, and a substructure rehabilitation on this bridge, as well as reconstruction of the ornamental rail. This bridge, again, you can see either side will be doing the work. And then we think we'll be in the canal on this one about 7 months, although the estimated construction duration on this bridge is almost 2 years. And these would be the easements that we're seeking for this bridge as well. Suffolk over Northern, superstructure and sidewalk replacement. With safety railing on either side, some more substructure rehabilitation. This bridge will be closed for the duration of construction, and then some new ornamental rail and preservation of the canal walls and preservation of the canal piers there as well. That's a very interesting bridge with the curved pier underneath. It's not like anything that we have elsewhere, really in Lowell, downtown for sure. This project includes construction of a concrete boat section in the canal to shore up the substructure on either side. We think that the duration of the work in this canal will be about 6 months. I'm not sure how long we intend to work on this one, probably about 2 years as well. So here's the construction plan, and then the property plan with the easements needed. Pawtucket over Pawtucket. This is a complete bridge replacement. This is our current condition out there. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure, and this is this is a rendering of what we believe the street will look like when we're done. Not on this rendering, but included in this project is reservation of right-of-way on either side for a future bike lane. We don't have them right now on Pawtucket Street. However, we will be reserving the right-of-way for a future bike lane, when we redo Pawtucket Street. This is the construction plan out there, and our easement plan. Let's see. So the easement plans for this bridge at the complete replacement is we'll need easement for bridge construction access, some grading, clearing, grubbing, obviously erosion and sediment control, and then replacement lumen seed. There will be riprap in the channel and a cofferdam sheeting for dewatering here. And then the estimated duration of the work in the canal is 4 months. This is another bridge that we think is going to be about a 22-month build. Pawtucket over Northern, this is our other replacement in very rough shape. complete replacement, and then with new ornamental rail and a new granite wing wall. So here's a rendering of current conditions, pretty rough, and then future post-construction. And here's our construction plan, property plan, easements necessary to do this work. All right, move on to the schedule. We are almost at 100% design. The schedule says we were going to be done in April 2017. We will be at 100% design. I'm expecting 3 bridges this Friday, and then 3 additional bridges a week from this Friday. We will be at full design. The advertisement date for this project is July 8th. And we expect to be underway. If we advertise on July 8th, we expect the contract to be awarded probably in the early fall, but we don't really expect any construction activity to start until next spring, in the next construction season. All right, so this is the draft construction durations. Again, we don't know which bridge would go first, second, which bridges could potentially be built simultaneously. But again, what we are aiming to do here is just have the impact be as minimal as possible when you're working on 6 bridges downtown. So it's a little challenging, especially with all the other anticipated work to be done in the city. So that's basically the overview of the project. I know that my consultant had sent around, we submitted water quality permit applications and some dredging applications that we were all CC'd on. You feel free to take a look at those. They talk a little more in depth about the work that we anticipate to be done in the canals themselves. But for the most part, that's the project in a nutshell.
I'm pleased that something is happening and agree with you. I mean, I don't feel safe riding my bike over Pawtucket. So, I mean, that one's just kind of, you wait for heavier traffic to go before.
Yeah.
You just don't want to go down with the ship on that one. So I'm a little curious, seeing some of the dates on some of the rebuilds. Are the Central Street and the Suffolk Street ones, which have been very recently rehabbed, is this work that's being redone, or is this additional work, or?
So for the most part, this is additional work into the rehab work that had been done this far. And so Enel right now is the current owner of those bridges. The bridges are posted with weight restrictions for the most part. They have done some rehab work, and what we will be doing is going back and completing the rehab work to the point where the bridges are unposted for the foreseeable future, the next 30, 40, 50 years bridge life. What we have on there right now is I don't even want to call it a Band-Aid. That's not correct. I mean, they're good repairs, but this will actually extend the life of the bridge and provide better value to the city once we acquire them.
All right. Okay, I mean, because I'm looking at the dates for the Merrimack Street Bridge here, and, built in, 1830-something, rebuilt in 1890-something, and here we are 130 years later almost, and, how many millions of cars have gone over that thing, so.
I'll tell you, one of the, I think, most interesting things about going through this design process is the reality that we just don't build them like we used to. These bridges have really stood up the test of time. I think that they are, for the most part, through with their functional life, but still are providing good service and are still in relatively okay shape. I feel the one at Merrimack over Western, I think the last time work was done on that one was probably as a WPA project in the 20s or 30s. But, again, these bridges have been privately owned for all these years. And now that the city will be acquiring them, they'll have the opportunity to use more public funding to keep them up and keep them operational. So.
All right, any?
When these, I guess you explained it with the timeline, but will you be coming before us with a notice of intent, say, in the future? Or is this exempt from orders of condition.
Right, so this project is eligible for footprint bridge exemption. Every one of these is going to be a footprint bridge. Well, the replacements will be, and then the work that we're doing on the other bridges is rehabilitation work. As I understand it, in the 2012 Transportation Bond Bill, Section 22, that's what we're citing as being eligible for the footprint bridge exemption, as well as the City Wetlands Ordinance, Section 3. So.
So I was lucky to sit on a plane right next to Elizabeth Warren on the way home from Puerto Rico,
Right
like
on.
about a year ago. And so we were chit-chatting the whole way, and she was like, Lowell, like, we just got a ton of money for Lowell, like, doing bridges. So I'm assuming this was that?
This is that grant, yes, this is
Okay.
that project.
Okay, yeah, she was super excited, so
Yeah.
it's cool
Yeah.
to see it all happen.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you for the presentation.
no problem.
All right, anything else? Nothing? All right, thank you for coming in
All right.
and filling us in, so,
Sure, thank you. Any questions, don't hesitate to
All right.
call, reach out. Thank you.
thank you. All right, so moving on is we received a notice from Pan Am Railways about their yearly, is this spraying or cutting? Do we know?
Spraying, this one
Oh,
is spraying from.
Spraying,
Hannah.
is that the
Yep.
same with National Grid?
Yes.
Okay.
We received a letter from Conoco about 92 Bolt Street, just a notice of an AUL and the recorded deed. I haven't a chance to go through it to know exactly, but it's referring to the National Grid property.
Okay,
So it was just a notice that they recorded an AUL at the registry.
okay.
So if you want more information,
Can you just forward a digital copy to the commission?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
And the other two were just notices, both are Chapter 91 waterway license, both for the national park, one for the UMass Boathouse and the other for the Swamp Block Waters. They're replacing they're removing the existing floating bridges and putting in new ones. So we just got notice of the DEP permit.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any questions? No? Okay. And then we have minutes from March 8, 2017, March 22, 2017, April 12th, 2017, and April 26, 2017. Patrick's been busy. That's you. You've been busy.
Would there be any objection to postponing the minutes until the next time?
No problem.
Yeah, this,
All right, so why don't we table those until May 24th? All right, we have partial, we have an RDA and a partial COC, so can we sign those now before I recuse myself? Hmm? No, it is. All right, and while Commissioner McDonough is signing those, I'm going to recuse myself from the next item on tonight's agenda and say good night and turn the chair over to Commissioner Varnum.
The next item on the agenda is listed as a discussion of 280 Totman Road. This was brought up at our last meeting, and we have received some comments and the discussion was concerning the beaver dam that's located not exactly at 280, but in the vicinity of, and the beavers did not apply for a street number. I know, excuse me, Mr. Slagle is here from the Planning Department, and he has sent out a memo on the topic, which I think we received, but I'm having a little trouble finding my copy of it here.
Eric, did it come for you or Christine?
Sorry?
What email address did it come? Did it come?
It came
you?
from my email.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. Okay, so there was an update given us at the last conservation meeting, if I recall. And we had not had a recent update, at least in my memory, and therefore we were asking Christine what had been going on with the subject. And Christine had informed us that an emergency order was issued on this particular property, and the emergency order was for beaver problems. I don't think I'll go through Mr. Slagle's letter point by point here, but perhaps would you like to speak on the subject now, or would you like me to continue talking?
I'd be glad to speak
Okay,
on
thank you.
on the subject. So I believe everyone in the commissions did get the memorandum that was prepared by myself and staff regarding the timeline for this issue. I think that the most important piece that I believe the commission is not fully aware of was the stakeholder meeting that occurred on April 10th, and everything subsequent to that with respect to a long-term water management plan on site. The stakeholder meeting included myself, Mr. Sam Polton, and attorney Bob LeBlanc on behalf of the radio station. There was Jesse Ledeck, who is from the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, who is familiar with the site. I believe he's been on site visits to the site with regards to the beaver issues. Kevin Hollenbeck from DCR was in attendance as well as representatives from Duval Manor. There are 3 beaver dams located in this area downstream from the 280 Totman site. One of the beaver dams is on DCR's property. There are 2 subsequent beaver dams on Duval Manor's property. which is why they were invited to the stakeholder meeting, in an effort to do a coordinated plan for the entirety of the kind of beavers range in that area. The state folks proposed a potential beaver deceiver, sometimes called a beaver baffle, which is a product that the DCR at least is very familiar with. They have apparently have a consultant that they regularly hire to do this type of work on DCR property. My understanding, not being a beaver expert, my understanding is that it involves an intake section set at an appropriate water level upstream of the dam, piping that takes that flow past the dam, and then an outflow downstream from the dam, along with appropriate kind of security kind of fencing. There's like a cage around the inflow to prevent the beavers from blocking it up. The folks at DCR, Mr. Hollenbeck from DCR, mentioned it does require some maintenance, but that they've had success with maintaining an appropriate kind of head pond levels, and not having the kind of buildup of pond water that we're seeing at the Topman site with this type of device. And the idea would be that after discussion with all the parties, that the state would contact their beaver consultant who regularly installs these for the state, that individual would come up with a coordinated plan for all of the beaver dams, the one on DCR's property and the ones on Duville's property, so that they would all be mitigated in the same program, the same project, so to speak. That Duville would undertake to pay for the entirety of the installation of the beaver deceivers on their property, and that WACAP expressed a willingness to work with DCR about how to fund DCR, the beaver deceiver on DCR's property. In part because I think DCR was suffering from some funding issues. And so Kevin Hollenbeck, there was some delays because he was going to be out of town, but in the latest correspondence I got from Mr. Hollenbeck, he indicated that the expert has been on site and is in the process of preparing a detailed proposal for the installation, along with a quote. This is something I literally just recently got from Mr. Hollenbeck after sending out some requests for follow-up to the state folks. So the Fisheries and Wildlife was on board to be able to basically give their blessing to an appropriate water level to protect the turtle habitat, which I actually think is actually being that habitat is in danger because of the rising waters. Believe it or not, that it's actually possibly getting too deep. And so I think everybody at the table, it is fair to say, was interested in getting this long-term plan prepared, approved, installed as soon as possible, because I think that everybody, it's fair to say that the continuing rise of waters in that pond is not only doing damage to the radio station's equipment, but also creating a very large potential for downstream flooding if there's a catastrophic breach of the dam. So that's kind of where we stand now. The radio station was, as I believe Christine told you last week, was given a beaver permit to do that was signed off by Fisheries and Wildlife and DCR to do a limited drawdown, a kind of a strategic breach and limited drawdown, sufficient to try and protect the radio station equipment while maintaining the turtle habitat. This is the same thing that happened in January that I think folks were pleased with the kind of temporary relief that limited breach was given, and my understanding is that the permit was issued to the same individual who actually did the work in January. So I believe all the parties were confident that this individual, the beaver expert that we hired, is competent and understood the expectations of both the state entities and the concerns of the radio station. And though with beavers, it's always a temporary fix if all you're doing is breaching the dam. In January, it was done in a way that I think was appropriate, that I think folks believed was appropriate, and therefore that was the same individual was the expert who was on the permit that was issued for the most recent work.
I did investigate the role that the Conservation Commission plays in these matters as far as emergency permits, and it actually is not in our purview to issue or not issue the actual emergency permit, but what we do have control over seems to be the breaching or the removal of dams. So what you've just been talking about is actually the part of the issue that I'm most interested in, and that's a permanent solution to this problem, because I don't have the number of emergencies that have occurred there, but I know this has been going on for a number of years, and that, you know, as you say, the problem continues to come back. I do think that there's room up there for both beavers and radio towers and nursing homes and forest property, but it should be some kind of a hope for permanent solution and not a just temporary solution of that which is achieved by an emergency permit. I would like to be kept, and I think this was the source of our frustration, or at least my frustration at the last meeting, was that we were unaware of the stakeholder meeting. And although Christine had mentioned that there might be an emergency permit issued, I certainly thought that that discussion would come back to us before it went to the point where work was being done at the site. So after I did find that the emergency permit is under public health, or you say that Fisheries and Wildlife perhaps have
state
superseding
property,
permission to do that, you know, I feel a little better about not being informed, because I realized that, you know, it probably was an emergency. But on the other hand, we did talk over a year ago about, you know, it was almost exactly a year between the two meetings, that in one where we did a site inspection on April 8th in 2016, and at our last meeting here at City Hall where, where we had a stakeholder held in April 10th, 2017. So it is coming along a little slower than perhaps we had hoped, but on the other hand, we haven't been pushing the issue either, thinking that everyone was happily splashing around out there, I guess.
I do want to let the commission know that we have, I'm encouraged by the fact that the state has kind of taken, the ball was in their court, really, because of the location of the dam. The hands of other folks are a little bit tied if the state isn't moving swiftly, because it's located on state property. So I'm very encouraged by the fact that they have, in fact, had their expert out and that he's preparing detailed plans. And our hope is that that there will be some sort of final resolution before another backup. Because as we all know, the minute you breach a beaver dam, the beavers are going to try to repair the breach, and so by definition, all these emergency orders are only temporary fixes. I am concerned that in a matter of time, I don't know how long, but I am concerned that if the state doesn't get kind of an answer that folks can act on, we will be. The radio station will make, I believe, a perfectly reasonable request to have another emergency order to breach the dam, because if no one can go onto the state's property and put in a beaver deceiver without the state signing off on it. So I hope that's not the case. I hope that we will get an answer, but I think we should all be aware that it's just a matter of time, that this temporary fix is not going to be an answer.
So how was it left with the state, that a plan was being prepared?
Yes, my last correspondence, and like I said, I literally very recently got this from Kevin Hollenbeck, that the expert that the state regularly hires to install these sorts of equipment at beaver dams had already been out to the site and had done a survey of the site and was preparing a detailed site-specific plan along with a quote for kind of the cost for installation. And so we are waiting, right now we're waiting for the state to get that back, and at that point in time, interface with the radio station and with Duville about how the actual installation is going to happen. I know that the parties are motivated to get it done quickly now that we're at this stage. So I hope that the next piece of information that we will be able to come back and give to the commission is that it has been installed, and we are now hoping that it's
I
going
would
to work.
hope that your office would be able to check in or keep up with them on a reasonable basis, a timeline basis, and keep us informed as well as to what the situation is.
We will absolutely do that.
Yeah. I did visit the site, and I do have, I don't know the proper city department that might be involved in this because it's state property, but I was concerned about security. I was able to walk right up to several very dangerous traps. There was no signage, it would be easy to fence off that area because it's only a narrow spit of land. And all I could think was of all the kids that live in that neighborhood just above that area.
Right. That unfortunately is a hurdle in of itself because it's state property.
Well, it's public property, and obviously anyone, and I know families that regularly walk through there. I don't know if they're aware that there's that danger there now.
Well, we have a regular contact with Steve Carlin, who's the local DCR agent who's very familiar with the area, so I can certainly let him know, and both Kevin Hollenbeck from DCR let them know that perhaps they need to do some signage or make people at least aware that there's, when.
I mean,
when
I had
permanent or
never seen
temporary.
a beaver trap before, and I was like poking around, what's this? You know, it's, you know, a couple of chains or rings, or, it was, you know, interesting looking. I'm sure a kid would be attracted to that as well.
I will, first thing tomorrow morning, I'll send an email out to them just to let them know that that's maybe something that they should,
Thank you.
that you were concerned that they should probably put up some signage or do something to make people aware.
Yeah. Does anybody else from the commission have questions or comments for this topic?
Do we know how much those beaver deceivers are?
I don't know.
Okay. Are we like $500 or like 10,000? Like, do we?
All I can say is that the impression that the state gave was that it's not an excessive amount of money. Like the impression that I got from the conversation was less. It was significantly less than $10,000, because all it is really is an outflow of PVC piping and kind of a cage over it.
Yeah, it's like a screen, right, with a pipe.
But I think some of it is site specific, so that's why I think they didn't want to say how much it was going to cost until their expert said basically how much it's going to cost. So hopefully we'll get that information.
Okay, so the state is the one who is getting the proposal for the cost and the scope or the work, and then Duval would use the same
Yes.
scope,
Yes.
whatever, contractor, whatever. Okay.
Yes. That was the end. That was how it was left at the last stakeholder meeting. Duval's just going to do the same process.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, I think in the commission's defense last meeting, this memo that you guys provided us was great. But we just didn't know that some of this was going on. So seeing all this is very informative, so thank you for typing that up.
I will give 90% of the credit to Christine.
Thank you.
Yes, I think like I said, I think it was the fact that we had not been kept informed and were surprised that certain steps had been taken without knowing that ahead of time.
And all good steps, like this is exactly what we wanted to happen, so thank you.
Anything else, Jeff? We do not have a quorum anymore. The meeting is essentially adjourned because we only have 3 members here. Okay, yeah, just so you know, this is not a public meeting because we have no quorum since we have only 3 members.
And I understand that this is discussion, and I want to thank you very much for putting it on the agenda at my request. So I am here.
Could you identify
Yes,
yourself,
I'm
please?
Sam Polton, 280 Totman Street is my property. I reside at 16 Berkeley Drive in Chelmsford, and I also own 2 businesses in town, one at 61 Market Street and one at 243 Central Street. And again, I want to thank you for putting this item on the agenda. I was concerned when the first agenda came out that we were not on the agenda, and I thought it would be a good thing for me to come and answer any questions that the commission may have. I want to particularly thank Christine McCall for being so cooperative. Thank you very much, Christine. The tenor of the last meeting, which I saw on Lowell Telecommunications, it prompts me to come to put our position on the record. We have a simple, long-term solution that we've had for a year. And I also want to make note that once again tonight, it was suggested that we haven't been before the commission for a year. And Attorney Slagle's timeline clearly shows that not to be correct, nor do the minutes of the Conservation Commission. In fact, we were here in September, and the only reason why May to September occurred is lack of a quorum prevented our business from being brought up. We were here twice without a quorum. We were here once to find a meeting canceled, and that's why we didn't come until August. So I guess I just want to ask, I don't think I'm hard to remember. Did everybody really forget that we had a very long, fruitful meeting in September?
Yeah, we didn't have benefit of Mr. Slagle's memo at that time, and we hear dozens of cases every year, and certainly remembering the dates of all of them is just not possible.
I understand. I'm not here to argue, but not 10 minutes ago you stated it again, and you have Mr. Slagle's memo. But I'm not here to do anything except solve the problem. And we've always been very aware of who controls the beaver situation, because it's been such for 10 years. And starting in 2012, we, after lengthy negotiations with everyone, including Fish and Wildlife, we had a plan in place. And as was pointed out, one of the things that we did on the site, and I think we're excellent stewards of that site, the site that we do own, we were unaware until last April that the dam was actually on DCR property. But it is public property. But we created a habitat for turtles so that they can come out of the marsh and lay their eggs safely. And that was expensive to do. And of course, that's endangered by the rising water. So it was a puzzle to me as to why Fish and Wildlife would be concerned about doing what they needed to get done. And I just want to say that we had been in touch with them. Until last April, we managed the water level very easily. And we never wanted the water to go any lower than the absolute minimum in order to keep the station functioning. I don't know what occurred in April that stopped that procedure, but we got the enforcement order, and then we're not able to come until September. And during that time, a great deal of damage was done to the equipment at the radio station. And we were still patient, and we were very hopeful after the meeting of in September, because we left hearing that a stakeholders meeting would be held as quickly as possible, now that we knew there were more than one dam and that the land was DCR's land, and we fully recognized the complications. And we accepted the solution that a stakeholders meeting would be held as quickly as possible. And that never happened. It didn't happen in October, it didn't happen in November, it didn't happen in December. And because of the freeze-thaw cycle that we had last summer, the site was not only inundated, when it froze, it destroyed all of our plastic connections and actually froze 2 of our dog houses off their footings and destroyed 1 door that we need to secure. And the only way we could access what used to be dry land was with knee waders. My chief engineer could not work in 2 feet of water, and we had to bring in pallets, to protect him so that he didn't get electrocuted. But again, I was very, very hopeful after that September meeting. In January, we did ask for an emergency order, and I think we went about it the right way. We started with the Board of Health, and we wound up with Attorney Slagle, Mr. Slagle, and it was issued, and we expected that to be ongoing, but it wasn't. The best we can understand is the person that was hired to trap and breach was called off. No other way to say it. I was not aware of that at the time. And he had trapped, I believe his report, which I'm sure you have, he had trapped 22 beavers and had slowly lowered the water level and felt he was within a few weeks of a good resolution. And then the water began rising again very quickly. And when we got in touch, we didn't know who that was at first. When we found out who it was, he had said that he was told to stop. So, again, I'm here to answer any questions, but I'm very, very anxious to keep the record correct. I believe we are excellent stewards. We are protecting the site while operating the radio station. We have not refused to come to the Conservation Commission meetings. We were prohibited from being heard. I asked to be on the agenda tonight because we were not on the agenda, even though watching the meeting from 2 weeks ago, you rightly so wanted answers. We are not responsible for notifying the Conservation Commission about the stakeholders meeting. We are being called violators. These are public meetings. I run a business that's in the media. To be called a violator over and over again is simply not good for my business, and that has nothing to do with the beavers. At the September meeting, we asked, and you agreed, that the enforcement order be, I don't remember what Attorney LeBlanc's exact words were, but he said because we did not trespass and we did not break a dam, we felt that the enforcement order should be rescinded. And at the meeting, we were asked if the enforcement order could be kept in force so that we would be a stakeholder. And we agreed that we could even use the address 280 Totman, even though we now knew that the dam was not on 280 Totman, and we knew that there were 2 dams further downstream. Again, and I wasn't here because we were told we didn't need to come. We inquired, should we be there? And we were told it's just a discussion. But I did watch it on TV, and I heard a number of things that disturbed me that I want to clear up. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts was not angry with us. Fish and Wildlife was not angry with us. None of them knew anything until they were alerted by this commission that something had occurred. And I was at the site walk, and I think everybody will remember that I was amazed when, as we walked into that land, we turned left instead of turning right, and we went to a dam that I didn't even know existed. But we've had an excellent relationship with Jesse at Fish and Wildlife. We've had an important relationship with DEP DCR because we agreed to an AO, and we strictly adhere to it. So it's also of concern because of the sensitivity of the site to have it suggested that we're doing anything wrong. All we're trying to do is get a long-term solution to the problem. It could have been done a year ago. I agree, and I agree that coming for emergency orders is not the right way to go. What I respectfully disagree with is that it can't be an emergency if it's been going on for a year. It's an emergency because something has caused the emergency. I don't know who or what. I only know that 2016 was different than every preceding year, and that everything began back last March or April, and I'm not sure of the date after all of this time. but not for want of our wanting to solve the problem. And I think that Mr. Slagle has correctly stated that it is out of our hands. I cannot install a beaver deceiver or beaver baffle on a dam that's not on my property. I just can't do it. But the current situation has now gone beyond anything that we could have imagined, and there is, I believe that we'll find that there is some damage that's near irreparable. There has been damage to not only the buildings, not only the electronic equipment, but we're on the verge of having serious damage to the site that we have spent so many years protecting. And I don't know how many other commissioners were present, but I know that the vice chair has been present since day one on this, which began in 2008. And I'm just at a loss. I don't know what to do. And not to get technical, and I know that, my business seems to be the last thing that's in the purview of the Conservation Commission, but just know that we can only maintain a 2-ohm deviation in our signal, which is affected by the depth of the water. The station was designed to operate in a marsh. That's what existed. That's what always exists until the beavers dam things and the water begins to back up. And we agreed not to keep the water down below the minimum that we needed. I now see that that is a mistake because I've heard a pond described. There is no pond. There is an enormous backlog of water, and I have the same concern that others do, that that water has to go someplace. It has never been like that. There is occasional rising of the water with the beavers, and then when the dam is breached to a reasonable level, it returns to being a marsh. Anyway, please bear with me getting back to that 2-ohm deviation. The depth of the water is now affecting our signal. And we are at that 2-ohm point. We can make no further adjustments. And it is an emergency. It's an emergency that is ongoing. It's requiring an enormous amount of my time to make sure that everything is safe out there. And we're out there much more often than we should have to be to make sure that everything is okay. And all I would ask is that we move forward and that the commission work with us to have a solution. And the first step is I'm just asking to not have another meeting where the record attempts to show that we haven't been cooperative or that we haven't been here for more than a year when it just isn't correct. And please imagine my frustration last June, July, and August when we had this very, very pressing problem and we could not meet with you. So we wanted to meet with you. We wanted to have you involved, and we want to have a solution that not only is good for the stakeholders, but preserves a very important and very sensitive part of our environment. And I would really like to answer any questions, now that I'm here, to answer any questions that any of the commissioners have, and I'm open to any suggestions that the Conservation Commission has. But despite the bureaucracies and everything else, We cannot afford any more delay. And again, I'm not just saying that on a business basis. It's not just about the harm being done to my business. It's my concern about safety. And I just stand ready to continue to cooperate. It would be helpful to know why it took so long to get a stakeholders meeting, because perhaps we can expedite things. I mean, I'm glad to contact folks. I didn't think that it was in my purview. And in fact, I was told that it wasn't. And one other thing that I still fail to understand, the chair recuses himself whenever we appear. I have not been told why. If there is something coming at me, I would like time to prepare for it. So I will stop talking. I'm here to answer questions, but I was compelled to set the record straight, and I think if anybody looks at the meeting from 2 weeks ago, you'll understand my distress. It just did not jibe with the facts, and I understand that it may be because you were not informed. So I'm here to inform you. I'm out there literally every day. I was out there before I came here. So does anyone have any questions of me?
I thank you for your comments. I think your statement that you'd be willing to also keep involved in the progress is important, because I think we all know that the state is understaffed and overstressed, and certainly if they don't think this is a priority, it's not going to get priority treatment. And I think we are all in agreement that we want to see some kind of a hopefully permanent solution out there. And my idea would be to have something installed in that dam, which is going to continue to attract more generations of beavers. Just removing them isn't the solution. I'd like to see some kind of a baffle or structure installed in that dam that's going to keep your water level at the right level. And I think that's the important part. Is I don't know, money is always an issue with the state Fish and Wildlife and DCR are perennially underfunded. So if this, as Caitlin was trying to ascertain what the cost would be, I think, that's probably a good question to find the answer to. Because if it's extremely expensive, that's, got to be taken up somehow, whether the city has emergency funds to help, or whether you would be willing to help, with the funding, I don't know. But I would like to see something tried that was able to keep the water at a permanent level, because people downstream are affected. I myself was affected. I live on Clay Pit Brook, and several years ago now, I'm looking at my backyard, and the brook level's rising fast. So I traced it back, as I am prone to do, and it turned out that people had seen almost a wall of water coming down Clay Pit Brook and crossing Varnum Avenue and going through the culverts. And that was probably an instance where the dam gave way. And so if you're holding back, I know you don't want to hold back all that water, but if you are holding back the water and it suddenly gets released, it causes flooding for everybody all the way downstream. If you have a baffle or something of that sort, then you don't have that fast release, which is so damaging to property. You'd have a reasonable release rate that people could count on. They wouldn't have to expect that they'd have to move their swing sets and everything else suddenly to get them out of the flood.
No, I could not agree with you more. For the record, please, I am not responsible for the floods downstream. I believe that what happened is what you described. There is so much water against the dams that they give way. I don't want anyone to misconstrue the water downstream as being connected to anything that Merrimack Valley Radio is doing. Quite the opposite. Again, 2012, 13, 14, 15, we knew that those were the rules under which we were living. We could not breach a beaver dam, and we never worked with conservation, we worked with the state. There was a mechanism set up where there was an inspection, and if a small amount of water needed to be relieved, it was done. And never had this kind of water backup. It was just done.
How was it done?
I do not know.
The state did it?
The times when we got relief, we went directly to the state, said the water level is rising to a dangerous level. It only happened twice. It happened once, I could probably find the date. We called, and our process was usually a 30-day window where they went through whatever they went through, and we didn't have 30 days that time. And someone came out, inspected it, and there was a small breach made, very small, and it lowered the water. But
You're saying that's what happened back in March 2016?
no, back in March, the only thing that was going on was our yearly inspection. Nothing else.
Okay.
Nothing else was occurring. Nobody was out. But that was a year ago. We were ready to come to the next meeting and say, we don't know where this is coming from. And just one other thing that I'm very concerned with. Please know, you don't need to fine us to bring us in. Again, I asked to be on the agenda so that you didn't start issuing fines. I was afraid tonight somebody would say, has anybody heard from the radio station? No, we haven't. Well, let's start imposing fines, because that's what was said at the last meeting. And please, all you need to do is say, come in and tell us what's going on, and I'll come in. And if there's no quorum and it's just a discussion, I'm happy. I'm not standing on any ceremonies. I want to work with you.
Yeah. No, I think, I know I spoke pretty aggressively last meeting, so I would like to apologize again for misspeaking, because there were, for me, I did not have this laid out all in front of us like we do tonight. So I think half the things I said I wouldn't have said if I had all this. But with that being said, I do have a few questions. So did you call, like you said you would call the state and it would be a 30-day process. Did you call last March?
I was instructed not to. I was instructed specifically
By who?
by the chairman of the Conservation Commission.
No, I'm talking before you even came to the Conservation Commission. You
No,
said your process.
we were prevented from doing anything. We received a cease and desist order.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. So prior, from 2012 on, before you ever stepped foot in this Conservation Commission, you said that you would communicate with the state, it'd be a 30-day process, and somehow the water would go down. And it was, whatever they did, that was on them.
Yeah.
Did you?
Only 2 times in those 5 years.
Okay, so at the beginning of 2016, did you call the state?
No. In March, that's when the problems begin. Mm-hmm. We have 17 and a half acres. And we walk our site. There is a dam upstream from us that's not a beaver dam, it's a concrete dam. And it appeared that, I think it's concrete, I don't know what it's made of. It appeared that someone or some natural force released the water from that dam because our water was high. We have huge culverts that span the site. Mm-hmm. And we found the water was coming up on the wrong side. So we had to go walk the entire site to see what was happening. And in the course of that, there was an encounter. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
But I know no one was breaking the beaver dam. We then came here thinking we needed to, because we had an enforcement order and we were told to come.
Yeah, but so I'm just focused on before that enforcement order. Were you in your head like, okay, it's time to call the state?
No, not yet. It wasn't that bad yet.
Okay,
Again.
Okay.
we-
I'm just
we
curious, like,
tolerate-
what-
I want you to understand that we tolerate the water as high as it could possibly go.
Yeah.
Because we always know it goes down. It goes down naturally.
okay,
And that didn't occur this year. At that time, in that March, April, we were not being flooded that way. It appeared that the water was coming
it's coming a different way.
a different way.
Okay,
So we were good. What then occurred was, at a meeting while I stood at the podium here attempting to do this,
Yeah.
I was admonished not to speak, read my, what could be construed as Miranda rights, and also admonished not to do anything, to do nothing,
yeah,
but to come to a future meeting. And then I'm not going to go over it again. There was no future meeting until the end of the summer.
yeah,
And again, a bad combination in the winter. This usually doesn't happen in the winter. It usually happens in the spring.
yeah.
But we had a very strange winter this year, and that led to the emergency in January.
So the emergency in January, you said that, that somebody called that off as well. So,
Yes, it started, we went to multiple agencies because we didn't know who was going to give us the relief. So we appealed to the
yeah, you
Board of
got
Health.
emergency cert,
We
yeah,
came here, and finally, Mr. Slagle seems to be the point man for everything.
yeah, the
And
guy.
he then said, no, this is what you need to do. And of course, we ran into the bureaucracy of the state, and we got word to the state that it was a real emergency.
Okay,
And they again granted all the permissions, and I think the same person that we're employing now was employed by the city.
so under that emergency cert, you breached the dam in January, which you're allowed to.
Yeah, Mr. Musto breached the dam.
Okay.
A series of small breaches.
Yeah, and then you said that at some point could they have continued to breach the dam up to date, or is the emergency cert only for a certain period of time? Or is it like emergency cert per breach? Like how does?
The beaver permits, which are issued by the Board of Health and signed off by the Fisheries and Wildlife, are 10-day permits.
Okay, so it's like emergency cert for 10 days? Or,
What?
The emergency cert for us are 30 days.
Right, so the emergency certification from the Conservation Commission was 30 days.
okay,
The beaver permits are 10-day permits.
okay.
So
So you guys did whatever you needed to do within that 10 days, we're good, and then now we're back here in April needing another emergency cert, which we granted. So has that 10 days already happened, and that,
I think we're well into it, and again, the commission is on record as saying they're not going to issue any more emergency permits. I guess it's not up to you, so I feel a little better, but that wasn't a real great way to foster cooperation.
no, again, not knowing that
I'm on my knees.
not knowing that there was a stakeholder meeting at that point, that was said because we thought it was a temporary fix to just continue emergency certs. Now that we understand that there's a stakeholder meeting and there is a master plan involved, I think we're all at peace up here tonight. So, another question I have, the water level that was given by Fisheries and Wildlife, is that okay for your equipment?
I haven't received anything yet.
Okay,
I know that there was an inspection, and I know that a company called Beaver Solutions was tasked with making a proposal. Again, I'm monitoring this daily, and that's the last information I have. And I assumed, because I said that there was a meeting coming up, I assumed that something had been submitted, but I guess it hasn't arrived yet. I haven't received it yet.
okay.
It hasn't come yet.
So there's not like an elevation that they came up with that the water should be at, or?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I do think that Jesse Ledick from Fisheries and Wildlife and Mr. Polton at the stakeholder meeting agreed that is a known quantity. It's certainly that the habitat for the turtles and the radio station's equipment are not mutually exclusive. They can both coexist on that site.
Yeah, because they have for years.
Right, and it's how we design the turtle. I mean, remember, we had to design
The turtle
a
habitat.
turtle habitat, and they have to be out of the water.
Yeah.
The whole idea of laying their eggs,
Yeah.
is to be out of the water.
Yeah.
So, and again, we're very flexible
Mm-hmm.
on it, as long as we can access the towers, and they were deemed upland islands, for want of a better description, at the end of a 2-year process with DEP. And because we had to replace the fences that were around the thing, and we have to light the towers and all of those things, and we need 24/7 access to the towers. So the agreement was to do the minimum necessary to get those fences installed and to have 24 access to the towers, no more. And we agreed. The water now is so high, there's probably 3 feet or more of water where there's usually 3 or 4 inches of water. And we have 2 of our towers are totally inaccessible. And as I said, when the ice froze and everything, the damage was enormous. Ice is a very powerful thing when it's when the water is expanding like
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't think anybody needs any more than those elevations. In fact, there are marks on our culverts. There are orange marks when everything was installed that says this is normal.
This is a good.
This is the
yeah.
normal
Okay.
water, and this is all good.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure, if there is an elevation that's set, I feel like that is going to be a number that we might be sticking with for years. You know, like, this is going to be a thing with these beavers, no matter who owns this property. So I just want to make sure whatever elevation, if that does happen, that Fish and Wildlife or whoever the stakeholders agree on, that works for the turtles, it works for you, and, because I feel like it will come again. Let's say we do this master plan and we have what are the beaver deceivers, and it's all great, but that's not working in 5 years. There will be, again, another topic, and I think that elevation's gonna keep coming back, like, you know, then let's breach it to get back to that elevation. I wanna make sure that might be a very important number down the road.
Right, but I think now that there are multiple dams,
Yeah,
I think we have to take into consideration, again, working together,
yes,
that the backup of the water is certainly not useful, and I think it's probably changed. I'm not a hydrologist, and my saying, I don't care if the water is higher than it should be, as long as it's not interfering with my equipment.
Yeah.
It may be that is not the correct way to go, because then it causes a problem downstream when the dams are breached. But I'm sure that the state, being well aware of everything that's going on and all the moving parts, is thinking of that. And again, the real driving elevation is we know the elevation of the turtle habitat, so I guess at minimum, the water can't
Go
come
above
up to
that.
wash away the sand
Yeah.
that the turtles nest in.
okay,
And just one of the, and I apologize, Attorney LeBlanc took ill outside, very, very sick. I'm going to check up on him, or he would have been here. I'm not an attorney,
Yep.
and I waive my right of counsel. I don't need him.
doing great, yep,
But there is one word that is disturbing me from my past experience with DEP, DCR, and that's the term pond. A pond is a very specific thing, and it has all sorts of regulations. We don't have a pond. We do have some ponding now, but we're not in a pond. We're in a marsh that's a protected wetland, and it does occasionally flood. But again, it's not a pond by the Wetlands Protection Act definition of a pond. We do have a brook that we live with, and that's Clay Pit Brook,
yeah,
which, because of something that occurred on the Merrimack River. The course of Clay Pit Brook changed from when the radio station was built. We're living with that.
Yeah.
One of our towers has to deal with rising water in Clay Pit Brook. Nobody can do anything about that. We live with it. So I know we have a brook, but we don't have a pond. And I guess the last thing I'm concerned about is somehow that enforcement order was put back into effect. And it's concerning me.
No, that enforcement order has always been in effect. That hasn't gone away yet. We would have to get rid of that, and we have not voted on that yet. So that's always been there.
Then that's a serious concern because, and maybe I misunderstood, I thought at the September meeting, the issue of the breaching of the dam and the trespassing on property, and by the way, I also agree with the vice chair, you can't trespass on state property. I mean, if somebody was walking down the state path, they weren't trespassing, they were walking on state property. So,
Yeah,
again,
so-
at the time when I was told that the dam was not on my property, but we did not trespass, we did not breach a beaver dam, and we certainly didn't get anybody in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts angry with us. So I don't know what the process is to correct that error.
Once, yeah, the enforcement order is still alive. It probably will get lifted once these beaver deceivers go in. Because usually you need like a conclusion to, you have to have some plan.
Well, then I'll just say on the record, I was never questioned about the incident. I was never given an opportunity to explain the misunderstanding or the misconceptions. And the only thing that I'm not pleased about in this meeting, it was a very productive meeting until now. And
That you didn't know that there was still an enforcement order?
not only didn't I know, I was told that there wasn't. I said I may have misunderstood. And I strongly object to being under an enforcement order that suggests that I trespassed and broke a beaver dam. And that's all I'm going to say. That's
Yeah, and
for
that's
the record.
okay.
And I heard what you said loud and clear. And I have to assure you that although some people find humor, and I can be humorous too, we're talking about possibly in excess of $100,000. There is nothing humorous about that.
What's
The
that?
damage done to date.
Okay,
And nothing humorous about that.
yep, agree.
And there was only one reason that it happened. Simply one reason. And that was the lack of anything occurring from April 2016 to September 2016, despite our best efforts to prevent that. And to have an enforcement order on the record for people to see and to be called a violator, as I was 2 weeks ago.
Which we apologize for, so I don't
And
know what else.
accept your apologies, but
Yeah,
you know
I know.
what? There's, people will say you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. I'll just use a quick other analogy. It's like someone opens up a feather pillow and they throw all the feathers up in the air, and to make someone whole, all they have to do is give him back his feather pillow. Well, how are they going to collect all those feathers? So I guess in one respect, it's a cliche, but it's very true in my case. Where do I go to get my reputation back, let alone the money? And the longer that enforcement order is in effect, suggesting that we did something, and I also very much understand that you can start fining me. So I hope that you don't go down that road.
We do not plan on going down that road. Eric,
Yeah.
I'm correct, right, that the enforcement order is still,
The enforcement order is in effect. The commission amended it in September. It has no reference to trespassing. It does retain a reference to breaching a dam. That's the reference.
We were concerned that you were concerned about the wording, and so I remember that we did change the wording, which didn't point directly at you anymore, but I'm not sure we had the property owner correct at that time either, so.
Well, my understanding was the enforcement order was a technicality to make us a stakeholder, and the reference was to the breaching of a beaver dam.
Yeah, but then that got changed to the destruction of a beaver dam on the property south of 280 Topman, and that's, the enforcement order got changed to that.
Okay, then in my defense, I did not breach the dam.
Okay.
And whatever evidence is needed can be provided, but the enforcement order continues to damage me. And I recognize that it's your decision on what you do.
We have no quorum, as
I
as you
understand.
know
I
tonight.
understand there's no quorum. It's happened quite a few times.
I think what we were waiting for was the restoration plan, and I understand that that's not in your control either at this point, except marginally, where you could encourage the state perhaps to come up with a...
No, and again, for the record, we were anxious to find out, what damage had been done, and upon investigation and examination, as far as I understand it, because I am in touch with the other agencies, there was no damage, and the beavers restored the dam. So at this point, the restoration would be, we now get out there by canoe so as not to trespass. When last we canoed, there is quite a bit of ponding on the other side of this dam being caused by the downstream dams, and what's normally walkable, because I'm real familiar with the area, is now inaccessible. It's underwater. So there's a great deal of water now on the other side of the dam adjacent to 280, and I don't know that anything is being done with those dams, but if those dams aren't taken care of, obviously,
They're all, entitled,
it's going to back
So,
all the way up.
Eric, what is the plan moving forward? Is there another stakeholder meeting happening, or we're waiting for that cost proposal?
Yeah, they did not, the parties didn't set up a subsequent official meeting.
Okay.
I'm sure Mr. Bolton can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we are waiting for the state's expert to provide folks, including the radio station and DCR and Fisheries and Wildlife, with the site-specific plan and the quote. And I apologize, I'm not enough of an expert to know how long it takes to install something like this, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So subsequent to that, I believe that DCR and the radio station came up with a tentative plan as to how they were going to deal with the funding issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I don't know if Mr. Polton knows how quickly that could be put into effect after a proposal is submitted. I do know that DCR made it fairly clear that they didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So I think there would be some sort of funding requirement,
yeah.
and then a timing for installation. And I regret to say I have no idea what the timeline would be once that plan comes in, and what's the best case or worst case scenario for that timeline.
So should we be pushing that, because right now your property's underwater and you're losing money every day?
Yeah, the property is underwater. We are continuing to use Mr. Musto. He's pretty frustrated. Trapping 22 beavers was a lot.
A lot, yeah.
The first time he went out, and he said it was because the maintenance of that area had been neglected, and
How many-
that attracts beavers.
So have you done anything with this new enforcement order that we issued in April?
You mean the emergency order?
Sorry, yeah, the emergency,
We hired Mr. Musto,
yeah,
and he's been out there doing what he's supposed to do.
trapping, okay.
And I think that's about to, must be pretty close to expiration. I think that Christine, who, again, I commend, she was just so on top of things for her. She averted a real disaster. I don't remember when the second one was issued, Christine. Do you?
It was issued, yeah, April 26th.
So it expires. It was certified here, so it would expire May 26th.
May 26th, okay.
And we have issued a subsequent 10-day permit. So there was an initial 10-day permit beaver permit issued. There's been a subsequent 10-day beaver permit issued. So there will be, I'm assuming that they will need the full 30 days. There will be a subsequent beaver permit issued, so he'll have a valid beaver permit for the entire 30 days of the emergency.
I guess that, and I know there's no quorum, but that, that solves the need to keep asking for emergency permits. I think Trapper Musto, who is certified and everything and works with this, knows how much time he needs, and he knows how much time he has, and he's the one who alerted me that, my goodness, the permit is expiring tomorrow. You've got to get me an extension or I've got to leave,
Okay, and we're just trapping, we are not breaching.
No, in order for them to install the beaver deceiver or the baffle, the first thing that needs to be done, the baffle doesn't lower the water level. The baffle or deceiver will maintain a water level that's been established. Maybe, they're hoping that that's the solution, but the first thing that needs to be done is the level needs to be lowered.
Okay, so we're catching beavers and breaching the dam
And-
to a certain level.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
but because he only goes to the letter of the law, the breaches are very small, and there's a tremendous amount of water. So it's going to take quite a bit of time for that water level to come down.
Okay,
And that would be, so that's kind of reflective of my earlier comment to the commission, which is if the water cannot be drawn down in sufficient enough space before the 30 days expires,
you might come for another one.
there may need to be another
Another
emergency certification and continued beaver permit so that Mr. Musto can draw down the water. I think that would be, if you asked every stakeholder, that would be what they would like to see, which
Yeah.
is now that there's a process in place, that we continue that process until it's at a point that a permanent solution can, there's no point in abandoning the emergency procedures until we know that there's a permanent solution that can go in. So that would be the city's position would be that, we issue emergency certifications until such time as there's a
To the
permanent
beaver
solution.
deceiver, and again, that's on the state, and the state's timely.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
yep. Okay, so just to sum up my stuff, again, I do wanna apologize. I don't think we have any, we're all volunteers, I don't think there's any bad people in this room that by any means had intentions to ever give you a bad name. So again, that was not our intentions at all, and I do apologize. I want to thank you for working with us. And then I also want to thank you for working with the radio station, working with DCR financially, because I know that's probably a tough thing for them. So I would like to thank you for that. And I think moving forward, I think it might make sense to maybe schedule a site walk at some point, maybe before or around when those beaver deceivers are going in, just to kind of give us all a little education on that. And then I think the Conservation Commission should be notified prior to any of that work, if it does. And then if there were to be another stakeholder meeting or anything like that, I think at this point we've all learned we want to be maybe there, or just at least know about it this time.
What I think makes the most sense is we can keep the commission informed from the state's perspective if and when we are provided with the information from the state about the kind of long-term plan. We can certainly make the commission aware of that information, and I don't see a difficulty in arranging something as long as it's not, I wouldn't want to try to arrange a site visit in such a way that it would delay.
Oh, yeah, no, don't delay anything.
No,
Yeah, or just like, hey, guys, they're putting the beaver deceivers in this week.
That was what I was
Heads
gonna
up,
suggest. Maybe
yeah.
we can give you a heads up as to when things are happening.
Yeah.
And if you would like to try to arrange with either the radio station or the state a site visit on those times, that might be a better plan, so that we make sure that the process remains kind of as swift as we can make it, while still providing the Conservation Commission with the information that they need.
And then, is there any fall, I know it's kind of like out of our hands because the state's asking for that proposal. Is there, and then you can tell me, like, Kate, we just talked to them last week, we don't want to be stalkers, but is there any, like, communications that can happen from us? Like, hey, we just had a meeting, again, the water level's like rising again, let's push to get that sooner than later?
I have tried since the stakeholder meeting to email regularly with the stakeholders. The reasons for my emails are to try and push, I think Mr. Polton is a recipient of those emails. I have been trying to attempt to elicit information from the state regarding where they are in the process. That is what prompted the response, saying that they did get the information back, that they did have the expert on site and they were doing a plan. I certainly plan to continue kind of periodic pokes to see if they're not forthcoming with information by, say, the beginning of next week. I will probably send out an email to everybody, including the stakeholders, including Mr. Polton and Attorney LeBlanc, just requesting if we had a better ETA as to when that plan would be there.
And at that point, it might be like, we're on our third enforcement order. Hey, check out this awesome memo with all these dates. Like, let's go. Yeah. Okay.
You could also say the Conservation Commission has asked you to check on progress.
I will gladly push you guys right under the
Yeah,
bus.
I'll write an email on behalf of Christine has seen my email, so.
No, I think that the fact that this meeting has happened and you have inquired is certainly a reason for us to reach out again to the state
Okay.
and say the Conservation is merely inquiring if we have an ETA on when they're going to get that proposal back. And I know that, that all of the stakeholders and certainly the radio station are as eager to get that as I think you guys are.
Great.
Is there anything else, Mr. Polton?
No, I hope that even though there was no quorum, I hope the record will show that I came and answered questions. And
I'm sure it's all on the record, and I want to thank you for being here because I think that helped clear up some issues.
okay, thank you very much. Do we need to come in 2 weeks, or?
I don't think so. I think you're good. You're just a stakeholder.
I think until we hear of any progress, that this probably won't appear on the agenda again until that point. Christine will know.
So I'm going to assume that my point of contact is still Mr. Slagle.
Yes, and so the plan, I think, would be, I again will make the commission aware. Mr. Polton will obviously already be aware, hopefully, of when we get the plan from the state, and I will ask them for a timeline, and that both the city, the commission, obviously the stakeholders want to be made aware of kind of installation dates, and that the Conservation Commission had expressed an interest in possibly being on site around that time to observe. And I would imagine that the next time that this would be officially on the commission's docket would be subsequent to an installation, with the exception of if we need to issue another emergency certification.
Yeah.
The last time that happened, I will take responsibility. I was the one who told Mr. Polton, it's an emergency certification, we have to do that. You don't need to show up because it's merely an emergency certification. If that was my error, I do apologize to Mr. Polton and to the commission.
I know we thought it was just going to be a little 2-minute thing.
I would anticipate, based on the tenor of the commission tonight, that if we do have to get another enforcement order on or around the 26th, another emergency certification on or around the 26th, that Mr. Polton would probably not need to be here.
I think understanding the whole picture now, the timeline, absolutely not. We completely understand now.
So if that's necessary, is there a meeting on the 24th? If for some reason Mr. Musto believes that he needs more time past the 24th, I would anticipate that being on the agenda for the 24th for another 30-day order. But I would also anticipate that neither I nor Mr. Polton would need to come there. We will leave that in Christine's capable hands.
Yeah.
And as far as the cease and desist order, I'm of the opinion that once we get a plan from the state. That seems to be the other half of the requirement on that. I realize you're not completely, I realize the problem with that cease and desist order from your perspective. But I would feel comfortable, provided we have a quorum, to lift that as soon as we have a plan from the state that proposes either installation of a baffle or some other means of permanently trying to control that water level.
Right.
Okay, well,
We
then
we would greatly appreciate that. I take our responsibility very seriously, and that would be excellent.
Well, we'll obviously keep the commission informed. That may, I mean, I am hoping that we would have a plan before the 24th, but we would need it a week in advance. We would need to know by the 17th. We may not know by the 17th that we're going to have a plan by the 24th. So I would anticipate from the commission's perspective, either the 24th or the first meeting in June, we would,
Just say whenever it should
comes,
come up and we have a
whenever we have
quorum, yeah.
sufficient notice.
And we would, that's my feeling, but we'd be discussing it
And
again at that
if
point.
not to keep going, but to that point, because that's a lot of progress, I just hope the commission will realize that the delay is not of our making, but the continued enforcement of the enforcement order, if you will, does interfere with anything that is being done, some of the things that are done in the normal course of events that we have permission for. So we don't want anybody to misconstrue anything that we might do, seeing that there is, a cease and desist on. It makes it, it's walking on eggshells for us. And again, perception is reality, and we don't want people to feel that we're doing anything untoward or bad. So in our case, time is really of the essence. I can't underscore that enough. I hope you'll all tune to 980 WCAP. We say great things about Lowell whenever we can. And the music at night is very good. But again, the signal is degrading, and we want people to be able to keep hearing us.
Yes. I think we all want that as well. We're all about the local. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else from?
Thank you
the,
very much.
City?
you.
Thank you. Do you want to just? Okay, we're not actually having a meeting here, so with our discussion ended, I think we can adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We can't have any motions.
Right.
We don't have a quorum. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.